Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Bleav in Iowa podcast. I'm Logan Blackman. He is former Iowa Hawkeye tight end Dominique Dafney, and the regular season has wrapped up with Iowa getting yet another win over Nebraska. This one in dominating 40-16 fashion. Dom, this was a really, I mean, it was close in the first half. There were some sketchy moments for Iowa, especially when it came to tackling Emmett Johnson, but that second half came around and it was just, as I mean, you can say the phrase, but just a really good way to end the regular season.
Yeah, it was belt to ass. And I think it was like it was the perfect way to end the regular season. And getting a lot of that frustration out of the teams that we were right there of beating, the Indianas, the Oregons, Iowa States, the games where we were right there, we should have won, had an opportunity to gave ourselves a chance to win, but just didn't. But, you know, there's just something about beating Nebraska. And I mean, it's always cool to beat Iowa State, but there's still respect. It's always cool to beat Minnesota, beat Wisconsin, but there's still respect. Nebraska? Oh my goodness. The fact that it's a team that talks so much, even though we've beaten them 10 of the last 11 times, but
Yeah.
they cry and cry and cry that it's a rivalry. They cry and cry and cry that they're still great and there's no rivalry against us and they can't even protect the border. So it's like whenever we beat them, it's just like it's like when your brother's like picking at you and you're just like, all right, bro, like chill, like all right, relax, and they just keep going and keep going. You're like, okay, I don't want to have to do this. You're gonna be pissed when I do what I'm about to do, and they keep going, and you're like, all right, and then you put them in a headlock, and they're like, stop, 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 stop. That's what that feels like. Just giving them what they asked for and then some. So it's just like that feeling of beating Nebraska. I never lost to them, so I don't know what it's like to take a L, but beating them is just it feels great. It feels like we got a lot of that frustration of almost beating ranked opponents this year. Just like, you know what? We didn't beat them, but I damn sure know we're about to beat the shit out of Nebraska. So it was just felt good. I was talking to all my boys, like, yeah. They were like, did you guys win? Bruh, wasn't even a game. So it always feels good to end the season with a dub against Nebraska and, go into whatever bowl game and kind of have that feeling of, you know what, at least we got to whoop up on little brother.
I always find it fun when you're looking at when we were growing up with Iowa and Iowa State fans around and stuff like that, and there was always one common agreement between Iowa and Iowa State fans that we all hate Nebraska. It didn't matter if you were in Iowa State, Iowa. It just didn't matter. If you're from the state of Iowa, you just had a natural dislike for Nebraska. And when they were in the Big 12, it was more Iowa State. Now they're in the Big 10, and like you said, they try to spread this off on social media like, oh, we're not rivals with Iowa. We're not rivals with Iowa. We've won multiple national championships. We have multiple Heisman Trophy winners. We're a real blue blood in college football. But those days they're long and gone. They've been dead for a while. And Jackson Stratton, I think, put the final nail in the coffin last year. But now we're just going to keep piling down on top of it. And like you said, 11 out of the past 12 games, or 10 out of the last 11, or whatever it is, against Nebraska. And what I found, which is so crazy, is that Kirk Ferentz is now 7-1 in Big Ten games at Memorial Stadium. He plays there every other year and has more wins than Matt Rule plays there. Scott Frost, Mike Riley. The only coach he's behind in Big Ten wins at Memorial Stadium is Bo Pelini, who they ran out of town because they were better than all these 10-win seasons. It's like
Mhm.
they have this expectation of themselves that it's just not it's not attained. It's not That's not them. They're little brother now. You've got to accept your role. Like you brought up with your brothers before. Like your little brother always tries to punch up on you. You're like, okay, I'm tired of this. I'm gonna have to whoop you now. And then you stick him in the headlock, and you're like, okay, now you're crying. Now
Mhm.
you're crying. You just wanted to be the big dog. Now I've got you here. Now you're crying. It's one of those things where it was just so enjoyable to watch in every single aspect, especially when that second half came rolling around. It's just, man, it's always a great feeling to beat Nebraska. It's always a great feeling to beat
Always
Nebraska.
great. Yeah. And I could understand them from Iowa and Iowa State's perspective of, you know, we have the better corn, which I always think is such an interesting conversation. It's like, okay, congratulations, but we have the better corn. It's not a rivalry. Okay, we don't want a rivalry with you. Fine. If we're not begging to be rivals with Nebraska, I promise you, we're not. We have bigger and better things on our minds. So it's just like they constantly are the person who picks at you. I'll throw another analogy at you. It's like when your grandpa is like, I was the man back in the day, and you have to, okay, grandpa, we all right. Sound like, hey, whatever you say, grandpa, I believe you. So it's just like, yeah, they have all these accolades from the 80s and the 90s, which is so funny because people who are our age will yell that. It's like, bro, we weren't even almost alive. So what are you talking about? Why does that matter to you? Like, you don't sit here. I don't sit here. We don't ever talk about, yeah, but now Kinnick. It's like, okay, yeah, he won a Heisman, but I mean, were we there? I'm not going to sit here and argue like he's the GOAT. I have no idea. I'm sure he was a great guy, great player, but I mean, I'm not going to sit here and argue what Iowa did in 1970 and 1980 like I was there. Like, those were the good old days. I have no idea. I'm sure they were, but we didn't get to live them. So it's like, it's so weird when you hear people who are like in their 20s, 30s be like, oh man, it's like, bro, if you were alive, you were a baby. So it's like the fact that you would even argue that stuff is kind of ridiculous, but it's just like, it's the conversation with that fan base is always so funny because at the beginning of the year it's always rah rah rah, we're gonna do this and do that. And I saw a clip of Will Compton talking about we beat Iowa, we're right there for the college football playoff, and I was just like, come on, y'all do this to yourselves every single year where we're so hyped, and it's, oh, this is the year. They've honestly turned into the Dallas Cowboys of
Yeah.
college football. It's just like, this is going to be the year. And then they get to Iowa and they're just like, well, at least we made it to a bowl game, or, at least next year we'll have this 5-star coming in, or this guy,
Mm.
or just like Dallas, back in the day, it's just like, guys, just shut up. We're tired of hearing it about how so great you are, of how this isn't a rivalry. Oh, we're going to smack Iowa. Your offense is hilarious. And then you end up losing to us. So it's just like the rivalry, or whatever you want to call it, is hilarious to me because it always starts with so much, big chested, to now we're deflated talking about, well, we're not as good as Iowa. Yeah, that's what we've been trying to tell you, but you don't want to listen to anybody.
Yeah. And what made this game even sweeter is that on Monday was, I Bleav, the 13-year anniversary when they got beat 70-31 in the Big Ten championship game by Wisconsin, just to keep pile driving
Hmm.
down on Nebraska. But it was just like, and I love that you brought like the making fun of Iowa's offense. I remember back in week one when Iowa was struggling against UAlbany, and Nebraska's backup quarterback, who we saw in the game against Iowa, TJ Lateef, came in and they were talking about he put up more passing yards replacing Dylan Raiola than Mark Gronowski did. Oh my God, Iowa's trash offense here again. Well, that same trash offense just dropped 40 points on you with Mark Gronowski waving bye to everybody in the crowd. Because, like he even said, the crowd was talking the entire time, too. It's just this, I don't know what you really want to call it. If you'd call it like a lack of self-awareness or something like that, where it's, you're not that same team. You are the Dallas Cowboys. Like, one of my closest friends who I went to college with, big Cowboys fan. And as I'm a Bills fan, which has sucked for most of my life until now, but the Bills had a 17-year playoff drought. And in our lifetime, they have the same amount of playoff wins as the Dallas Cowboys. I think more playoff wins than the Dallas Cowboys, but they always talk about those Super Bowls in the 90s. They talk about the Roger Staubach years and stuff like that. Like, that doesn't matter anymore. We're here and now. Since we have been alive, these teams have been mediocre. They've been good, but they haven't been that same team that they talk about, like, oh, remember when Tommy Frazier, Eric Crouch, all these guys, like Eric Crouch won a Heisman in 2001. Okay, cool. We were 3 years old, 4 years old. Like, I don't care at that point. I move on to now. Your 5-star quarterback who thinks he's Patrick Mahomes is transferring. His little brother decommitted and stuff like that. You have this expectation. You fired Bo Pelini for 10 wins. Now you're keeping Matt Rhule. You extended Matt Rhule because you're afraid Penn State's going to poach him, and he gets another 7-win season. It's just this, oh, every year we're going to start off like Nebraska's this, Nebraska's this, Nebraska's this. And then at this point of the year, like, man, we're just not that. But then they'll talk themselves back into it, and it's just a continuous cycle that I personally enjoy because we talked about this last year. We had fun after the game last year, and I hope this continues on as the years continue to go on, because it's just a really fun feeling to just keep reminding Nebraska that you're not that guy anymore. You're not that
No,
guy anymore.
no, you're not. And another thing I'd love to remind people, I think it was Booger McFarland who was like, after he's seen the score of 40-16, he was like, "Oh, how often do you see Iowa score 40 points? Haven't we scored 40 points like 7 times in
Mhm.
the past like 2 seasons or
Yeah.
something under Tim Lester?" It's like it happens a lot more often than you think. Like
Mhm.
we, yes, it's always the running joke of Iowa's offense, and we joke about it as well because I mean we know you're kind of like making fun of yourself. Like we understand that the offense sometimes is just like a snail's race. Like sometimes we have a hard time to get going, but I mean put some respect on it that when we put up points, it comes in bunches and it keeps going and we run the ball well and then it opens up the pass game, which in this game really surprised me. I know I talked about the double move that they let TJ Vanami run, the little stop and go with a little pick route by RBZ. I was like, where has that concept been the whole year? Why have we not seen that? Well, that was a really good play call. So it's like when I see plays like that, when I see us put up 40 points against Wisconsin, against Nebraska, it leaves it leaves you wanting more, but it also is like, okay, I can see where this offense is going, with the formations, with the shifts, with us trying to, obviously we're going to run the ball because we do it better than most teams in the history of college football. But us hiding plays, us hiding Weegin and trying to get him the ball in different ways, us just throwing the ball up to Vanderzee and be like, hey, make a play for us. Seeing stuff like that. If we could get someone who's consistent at the helm, consistent with the ball in their hands as a quarterback, the way we talk about it, I feel like this is one thing Iowa always talks about every year. Our special teams is great. Our defense is great. If we even had a mediocre, consistently mediocre offense, I mean, we wouldn't be on the outside looking in. And I'm going to say that right now because we consistently are good on special teams. We're consistently making plays on defense. Defense is constantly keeping us in games. So if we had an offense who was consistent, we showed signs of being a really good offense time and time here and there. If we were consistently good, I mean, the sky is the limit with a team that doesn't shoot themselves in the foot when it comes to penalties and turnovers, who is consistently putting themselves in a position to win games when it's down to 2 minutes in the fourth quarter. I mean, you got an offense that can really show up on a consistent basis. I mean, we're right there. And I argue with guys down here. I talk about it all the time. SEC versus Big Ten. They were making jokes. If Iowa was in the SEC, they'd be Kentucky. Brother, if we were in the SEC, we'd be Tennessee because y'all boys went 8-4 and won nothing of some. I mean, you didn't win any of the big games. We didn't win any of the big games. We're both 8-4. We'll both be going to a really good bowl game, having a good time on New Year's Eve. So it's like if we could finally get over that hump of getting a consistent offense, I mean, talk about being in the 10, 11, 12. I'm shooting for bigger and better things, and I think that is absolutely possible.
100%. 100%. The 40 points that you brought up, and I love that you brought up the games they did the 40 points in, all rivalry games.
Mm-hmm.
All rivalry. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Nebraska, 40 points. Iowa State, that's whatever. That was early in the season. We wiped that one off, but the 40-point games against the other three, big time stuff. And if you look at the games the Iowa has lost this year, minus really the Iowa State game, because I can't really look at that one and go like, oh, Rocco Becht made some plays where you can go like, oh, that's the reason they won. A couple bounces went their way in that one. But if you look at USC, Oregon, Indiana, a lot of those games were not predicated on, but their quarterback stepped up when they needed him. Dante Moore made that throw to Malik Benson in the late game, right after Gronowski had the rushing touchdown. Jade Maava and Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane were on telepathic communication that entire time. Fernando Mendoza stepped in the pocket with defenders barreling down on him, hitting him in the face. Montgomery smacking him right in the mouth, still hitting Elijah Surratt down the seam. Like those quarterbacks made throws when they needed them to. And were they perfect the entire game? No, but they were able to make the plays when they needed to. And Gronowski is a good football player, a good runner, good leader by all things considered. Love to root for him, but he's just not that consistent guy as a passer. So overall with Gronowski, we've kind of talked about this throughout the course of the season, but it kind of comes with the territory with Iowa. Like, oh, you got to talk about the quarterback. Oh, it's always the quarterback. It's the quarterback. So that's the big question mark. Like you said, if Iowa had a consistent offense with a consistent quarterback throwing the ball, then we could be in that conversation of a college football playoff. We're winning games against Oregon, Indiana, and USC, and Iowa State even. Like the Iowa State game's not even a question, but the other ones are close games with good quarterbacks as well. So what would you overall, now that the regular season's done, we got the bowl game coming up as well, but what would you give Gronowski as a grade on the season and what you thought of him as a quarterback and what your expectations are looking towards the future of Iowa at that position?
If I have to put everything, I would probably say in that B minus C plus range.
Mhm.
Because I mean, he showed with his feet and with his toughness, and I mean, he showed like he's going to go down in Iowa football history as being a really tough quarterback and someone that you want to root for, and someone who came in with all the hopes in the world. And yes, he didn't beat the teams we needed him to beat, but I mean, he's just someone you want to root for, and he's kind of like that perfect Iowa football kind of image. When you think of Iowa football, you think of a gritty guy who is tough, who doesn't go down by one tackle. I mean, he's not the biggest, flashiest guy ever, but he's going to make plays for you when he needs to. So I would go probably that B minus to C plus range. And the only reason I'm saying that is because of the inconsistencies with his arm. In today's football, the quarterback is so important. We talk about the Heisman being the quarterback award these days because a good or bad quarterback can make a team rise or fall. So it's like that's kind of where we're at. So with the inconsistencies that you see with them throwing the ball, I think that's probably the perfect score to give them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I love that like you look at Mark Gronowski and you talked about it where he's the guy you picture that like that's Iowa football, like the gritty guy, the gut, you want to root for him. He's going to fight for every single yard. He's going to play through hurt. And if you look at just in our lifetime of Iowa quarterbacks, like one position that Iowa has kind of been criticized, not even just recently, but even if you look at like even likes of Drew Tate, Ricky Stanzi, like they were guys that also battled some criticism throughout their times at Iowa. But one guy that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misremembering it, the only quarterback I can really remember that didn't get any sort of vitriol or anything was CJ Beathard because he was a guy that he would battle through injuries. He'd fight through every yard. And I'm not comparing CJ Beathard to Mark Gronowski. I think CJ Beathard's a much better overall quarterback than Gronowski. But just that gritty dude that will run. Like I remember watching him against Minnesota, and his knee brace exploded on the football field because he's running together. He's like Cam Newton with all these different pads on because he's he's going to get some unnecessary hits in there. Just running around with these big pads on, like, and it just you love to root for guys like that, but he just wasn't there consistent enough as a passer to where you can go like I fully trust him to make these kind of plays down the field. I want the ball like there's throws to Reese Vandersee that he had in the game against Nebraska, against Minnesota, Michigan State made some big throws at the end of the game. Like you'd see those types of plays there, but they weren't consistent enough to really go like, oh, I have utmost confidence in him. But I'm intrigued to see what they do with the quarterback position, with the receivers and stuff, which that's another thing we've talked about a lot this year is the wide receivers, what they could do there. Reese Vandersee with a full offseason, hopefully he stays healthy throughout the offseason as well. And if you look at Iowa season as a whole, and I saw this on social media, and I'm intrigued to know what you think about it. If you look at Iowa's season a couple years ago, Deacon Hill's the quarterback when they went 10-2, went to the Big Ten championship game. Are you feeling better about this team after an 8-4 season, given everything we've seen this year, or what you were thinking after the 10-2 season when Iowa went to the Big Ten championship game that year? It was interesting because you like record wise, obviously the 10-2 team, but this team is just feels like it's a better overall team, just this close to getting to that certain point. So, what are your comparisons between the two? What are your thoughts going into next season comparatively to that time period as well?
Yeah, I as a whole, I would definitely say that like this year's team, I want to say it has more weapons. That's what I would say.
Mm.
It seems like more of a complete team. When you talk about the team with Deacon Hill, it was kind of, give the ball to two, give the ball to, this guy dot here, or not to two, I'm sorry, but to our running backs and see what they could do and hope for the best, I guess. And like we fell into some wins every once in a while. And I remember I would talk to my buddy Nico Ragaini, who went to Iowa. He was a receiver. I talked to him all the time about just bro, what's going on out there? Like it seems like there's a confidence level, but then it's just like sometimes it's just like, what are we doing?
Mhm.
And I feel like that team, it had like a lot of dogs on it, and there was like him, like wasn't that Spencer was there, and then he got hurt. Like
Yeah.
they were trying to. Spencer was when I tell you they were. You talk about C.J. Beathard. They thought Spencer Petras was going to be C.J. Beathard 2.0,
Oh,
and we all did, especially with the records that he had broke what did he break all of Jared Goff's records in
mhm.
Cali. So we were
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, he's about to come in and be a dog. And he made some good plays, and he was a good quarterback at times, but then at times it wasn't there. So it's just like when he came in, I remember when he came in, I was like, oh, he's about like it was going to be Nate Stanley and it was going to be him, and I was like, oh, I was about to like we're about to we're going all the way. It was the conversations that we were having when CJ was there. We went from CJ to Nate to Spencer. I was like, bruh, we're back. Iowa football is back. But then like it wasn't there. So of course they dealt with so many injuries that year, but was still able to win. And they just had a lot of dogs in this team. I feel like this team is more of like a complete team,
Mhm.
whereas like, we got three running backs. We got three receivers that we could possibly get the ball to. We had at least three tight ends. Our defense is flying around. We got guys making plays. So it was like it wasn't like one guy was standing out on either side of the ball, but everybody was able to make plays when they needed to make plays. Like when it was back then, you're looking at Cooper DeJean to make plays for you. You're hoping that Spencer will make plays for you. You're looking at Nico and some of the guys be like, come on, make a play for us. And like, so it was like we were banking on a couple guys to make plays. I feel like this year it was more we could hand the ball to anybody and hope, that we talked about it all the time. Like there wasn't really any receivers that was sticking out, but we were able to make plays when we needed them to. Obviously that's definitely something we're going to need to look at when we go into the portal is trying to find more receivers, better veteran receivers who are good at getting open, reading coverages, and getting some separation. That's something we're definitely going to look into. But I would say at this feeling, I would if we went to the college or not the college football play, if we went to the Big Ten championship this year, I would probably be more confident in this team than the team. What was that? 2023.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would feel more confident in this team to actually win. I remember I actually went to that game in 23 against Michigan, and I was sitting in a sea of blue by myself in black and gold. And I was like, oh, we're like, I was cheering, but in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, we're about to get stomped in this. But it was just like, so if we had to compare the two, I think that team had better individual players back in 22, 23. But I think this team as a whole is kind of a better outfit. They all work better together. And obviously the records don't show, and then we didn't win the games we were supposed to, but I would be more confident if it was this team in 2025 in the Big Ten championship versus the team back in 2022.
100%. 100%. And I love one thing that I love about the end of the season is that Iowa is going into bowl season with a top 25 ranking, put back in the college football playoff top 25, coming in at number 23. Hey, there's a chance that we get to see that Iowa Tennessee matchup in a bowl game this year. There could be an interesting matchup there for us. But yeah, I think that's all we've really got for you today. Is there anything closing remarks you would like to make about the season, about this game against Nebraska, about anything you want? Floor is yours.
When will they learn? 10 out of the last 11. I mean, some of them boys don't even know what that trophy looks like at this point. They don't even know what the memorial or the Heroes Trophy looks like. So it's always good to go out with a dub. It sucks that we couldn't win the games we needed to against the teams with numbers next to them with the ranked opponents. And that's going to be something we harp on in the offseason is finding athletes, finding quarterback receivers, more running backs, revamping this O line, the D line, because we're losing a lot of
Mhm.
very vital seniors. So finding ways to revamp this team, uh, get some guys in the spots to where we know we're gonna lose some dogs like Graves, like Llewellyn, like all those guys, and finding ways that we could fill the void that they're gonna create, and really taking a swing. I really want us to take a swing. I know we were talking about we had a really good recruiting class coming in with 4 stars and stuff, but I just want us to take a swing in this portal for someone who's gonna like really get us over the edge. Like 3, 4 guys who could really take us over that next level and really like we always talk about the college football playoff getting to 10, 11, 12, but really take us to that next level of trying to get there. Of the Ohio States, of the now the Indianas of the world, where we could be consistently good and fighting for those last spots and really making a case to be like, yeah, we need this Iowa football team in the college football playoff. So always good to beat up on little bro on the other side of the pond, but we like I said, we want bigger and better things, and that's the college football playoff.
100%. 100%. And one thing Nebraska does have, I'll give them credit for this. They've got that consecutive sellout streak. I mean, they have the promotional thing of everybody come dressed as a seat game. Like it was a nice promotional thing that they had going there. I think that's a thousand consecutive sellouts that they have at Memorial Stadium. So congratulations on your sellout streak. Because yeah, definitely didn't look empty.
hmm
Definitely didn't see
Yeah,
no empty seats on Saturday. But
none.
yeah, that's all we've got for you. Dom, you want to plug the socials real quick and then we'll close them out here.
Absolutely. We got Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all up and running at Bleav in Iowa, BLEAV.
All righty. Make sure to follow all those different social media accounts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that great stuff. I'm Logan Blackman. He's former Iowa Hawkeye tight end Dominique Dafney, and we will see you guys later.